Hello and welcome to episode 282 of the Epic Film Challenge 2, 1001 Movies You Must See Before You Die from 1941, I believe. No, 1949. In my head, it was 1949, and the one just came out of nowhere. 1949, from Ealing Studios, directed by Robert Hamer, Kind Hearts and Coronets. I've been aware of this film for a very, very long time, decades, in fact. Most famously because this is the film where Alec Guinness plays at least eight different characters. So I was aware of it on those terms, and for that reason, and that reason only, I wanted to watch it. But having now seen it, and I'm now going to talk about it and judge whether I think it's a film you should see before you die, I realize that the Alec Guinness aspect of this is really little to do with the film's success as a film, as a piece of art. It's a component, a pretty big component, but it isn't quite the whole show. So yeah, Ealing Studios, who I believe is kind of that originated a lot of comedies from that period in the 40s and 50s, I guess. I don't know too much about Ealing Studios, but again, synonymous with this film and like the Lady Killers and so on. It's something I need to educate myself on. I believe there is a documentary on here called Once More with Ealing, a featurette that goes into it and stuff. I listened to some of the audio commentary of this to hopefully get some kind of background information to talk to, to use for this review. Didn't really get much of that. I ended up kind of bailing on it after about 45 minutes. It's with Peter Bradshaw, a critic, Terence Davis, a filmmaker, and Alec Guinness's son, Matthew Guinness, who gets to say absolutely nothing because he's steamrolled by Terence Davis. I don't know who Terence Davis is. I don't know what films he's done. It's entertaining to listen to him talk about the film, but he really is just gushing about it the whole time and just be like, oh, it's an exquisite line. It's gorgeous. It's just delicious. The way he touched that tape, you just can't direct that. It's just it's exquisite. And he's just laughing at how funny it is. Oh, it's the funniest thing. And I'm just like, okay, Jesus Christ, can we get to hear from Alec Guinness's son? And they're like, oh, how old was your dad here? Oh, maybe 34. Oh, yeah, he's 34. Yeah, he's only in his 30s, wasn't he? Oh, you just look at this. Incredible. So, yeah, and then there's the stretches where no one's saying anything. So I had high hopes for the commentary, but it wasn't that interesting. I didn't get much. All I found was that it was based on the book, and the book has been out print for a very long time. That's pretty much it. So Dennis Price, I believe, let me double check that. Dennis Price is the star of the show here, and really the guy who holds everything together. And his character's name is Louis Mazzini, and he. How do I even set this up? I guess I could set it up really, really quickly, actually, and just say that Louis Mazzini is a man who is set on murdering a huge section of this family, a noble family, so that he can claim his birthright as the Duke of Chalfont, I believe. Is that the house? But it's the Gascoigne family. One of them is called Ascoigne Gascoigne. So the Gascoigne family, they kind of cast out their daughter, who is Dennis Price's character, Louis, his mother, because she decided to marry someone who wasn't noble himself, an Italian singer, who promptly dies of a heart attack when his son is born. Which, as Louis says in his voiceover, is why he only has a slight memory of his father. Due to the fact that my father died as soon as I was born, my memory of him is only slight. um, so his mother has been cast out and disowned from the family and stuff, and so she has to live in relative squalor. She raises her son, does the best that she can, but it isn't really enough to get by. And when she eventually passes away, her last dying wish is, can you have me buried in the Gascoigne family kind of, like there's like a grand kind of, what would you call it? There's a term for it and I've forgotten it already. In the family vault, there's like a fancy kind of cemetery, like just for the family, like a tomb. I don't know. You know what I'm talking about. You get the drift, and the family refuses because she married someone who wasn't noble, and yeah, so he just is so affronted by this Louis that he then decides that he is going to find a way to become the Duke of this family. But he's like 10th or 11th in line, and so he would have to kill a lot of people. And like he's got the whole like the family tree there behind a picture of the castle where the family lives, and so he frequently flips it around to mark off the people that he's killed. But before he even gets to that stage, there's this really dark moment where he's like, unfortunately, one of the members of the family had twins, but luckily, they. It's terrible. It's like with a stroke of luck, the twins were sick and died, and you can cross them off. It's a very black, very dark comedy, and so dry, like so deadpan. I'm sure that people have watched this film and not even realized it's a comedy and have taken it completely at face value. And to be honest, I actually thought it was going to be more funnier than it was in terms of the way it feels and presents itself. I thought it was going to be more broad in terms of its comedy, because I knew that this had the reputation of being a really great comedy classic. And again, with Alec Guinness playing all these different roles, he plays like I think 8 members of the Gascoigne family, including one of the women. And he frequently plays a character that Louis is trying to kill, as he works his way in a crisscross fashion through the Gascoigne family tree, to clear his line to not the throne, but the claim of being the Duke. And because that to him would be kind of righting the wrongs that the family had laid down upon his mother, I suppose. And it's interesting because the commentary they were saying how like, well, he's the good guy, he's not the good guy, and he is in a sense a serial killer. But you want to see him, do it, and that's kind of the weird dichotomy of films like this where characters do bad things and you want to see them do bad things, and it's also interesting to see the Alec Guinness side of this. And obviously I'm a big fan of Alec Guinness because of Star Wars. That just goes with the territory. I think he's fantastic in Bridge on the River Kwai, which I don't think I've reviewed for this series yet, but I'd like to see more of Alec Guinness, and so this is definitely more of Alec Guinness because he's in so many different roles. But I was expecting it to be broader in terms of this as well. I mean, you think of the actors who've done this, and you think of Peter Sellers in Doctor Strangelove. You go all the way through to Eddie Murphy in is it Doctor Dolittle? I think that's the one where he's... No, was it Doctor Dolittle or was it... Was that the one? I don't know. No, the Nutty Professor. I think it was the Nutty Professor, where he plays the whole family, and so there's that. There's Mike Myers, in I think he plays multiple characters in So I Married an Axe Murderer. Obviously Austin Powers as well. That just kind of upped the ante with each successive film. But you see these actors who do this kind of thing, and it's kind of it's almost like a rite of passage in comedy films. For every now and then, every generation or so, you'll see a comedy actor who will play loads of roles in the same film. But it didn't even start here. It goes all the way back to the silent era. You can see Buster Keaton do it in The Playhouse, where you even have in the same shot, he's playing like a man or a woman or different kind of characters and stuff. And there is a very impressive shot in this where at a funeral you see, I think, at least 6 different versions of Alec Guinness, and it's seamless. Like, it's really well done. I did read in some trivia somewhere that they had the camera set up for a couple of days to achieve that shot, and the cameraman made sure he stayed with the camera all night in case no one touched it, And I was looking at it like, Jesus Christ, it's a really impressive like hidden effect of exposing the film, I guess, multiple times and stuff. But Alec Guinness is really just playing really well performed characters. He's playing character, and you believe it. You believe these people that he's playing. It doesn't like, oh, it's Alec Guinness and he's wearing old man makeup. He has distinct differences to each of them without it feeling like they're wildly different. They do feel like they're from the same family, and they have different nuances to them without being over the top or being that like tics or anything. They're just these little details that make, almost all of the characters that he plays in the film very memorable, but also believable and real and breathable. Like they occupy the space in a way that they just feel like another character. They don't feel like, oh, here's another Alec Guinness one. Like, no, I almost started forgetting the fact that I was seeing him all the time in different roles, and so that was just really impressive, I thought. But Dennis Price, as I say, as Mazzini, really holds the whole film together. And the fact that the film opens with him on death row, and he's writing his memoir, throughout the night until he has to be executed in the morning, and you get this very elegant voiceover. He's got a great voice, and even though him and his mother grew up in kind of, a kind of working class environment, he still has this very eloquent kind of diction to him, and things like this, which is kind of an interesting contrast, I suppose. And the idea of class is explored quite a bit in this. He grew up with a girl called Sibella, played by, is it Joan Greenwood? Yeah, Joan Greenwood. Yeah, and Valerie Hobson plays Edith Gascoigne, who becomes a love interest for him later on. And that I found interesting, was he talks about like his route through the family as he's killing them and stuff. Um, and like he kills one of them and he goes to the funeral because he's kind of ingratiated himself into the family at that point. And then he said one of the people Alec Guinness plays is the Reverend, and he's very slow, droning voice and that kind of thing. And Louis says in his voiceover, like, he was so offensively boring to me that he had to be the next one on my list to kill, which is paraphrasing hugely, but things like that. As I say, the humor is so dry. But Joan Greenwood, Sobella, I need to check that again. I don't want to get her name wrong because she is so good, Joan Greenwood. There was just something about her, and her relationship with Louis is such a charged one, where they kind of grew up together. But again, there's that class issue, and she goes with someone else and she marries them, even though he asks her to marry him, before she does it, and she rejects him. But later she regrets that, and they begin an affair. But it's every interaction between them, it feels like there's multiple levels on both sides, where they're trying to get something from each other, and there's ulterior motives at play. So just every scene is so fascinating from that psychological aspect, and I thought her performance was great. Their chemistry was great. There was always something different with each scene with them, and that relationship progresses and evolves and devolves and kind of pushes and pulls, and was really the beating heart of the whole story, is that relationship, actually, and the way that it kind of ties into the whole crux of everything and where it's going is really quite engrossing by the end, I think, when she makes some choices towards the end there that are really interesting. But as I say, Dennis Price, I mean, it's his film. He's the main character, and he does such a great job. I really was impressed by him. I don't think I've seen him anything before. I might have. And the Alec Guinness gimmick, the best compliment I can give it is that it doesn't actually even feel like a gimmick. It almost feels like it works as a serious drama, and I was finding myself genuinely carried away with the story, not in a sense like, oh, this will be funny. Like, no, I was actually really intrigued to see where it was going to go. And, obviously the film opens with him on death row, so he got caught. So how far did he get before he got caught, and how did he get caught? So it's one of those things where you kind of tell the audience what's going to happen, but you don't tell them how it happens. And so that becomes kind of the big mystery, I suppose. And so I was really just captivated. Yeah, I did, and also laughing a lot. Just some of the dry humor was fantastic, and it comes from really dark, inappropriate moments, and it comes from just great dialogue and great kind of banter and stuff. And another thing I really should mention is just the production design, the set design. I mean, I don't know too much about Ealing Studios, as I said, but I mean, they made the use of the space, because some of these like opulent settings, especially in like the Gascoigne like family manor, are just incredible. There's so much detail in there, and even the makeup. I have to credit the makeup as well, just for Alec Guinness alone, because the old age stuff is so well done, and it never feels over the top. Like I say, like it's just very well executed. There's even some location stuff that kind of blends very well with the rest of the look of the film. But I really did think that just some of those sets, and it's all part of the texture of the film, which is just so full of really well executed elements to begin with. So yeah, I could go into more detail about some of the things I enjoyed, I suppose, but it would be spoiling things, I think, to kind of go into too much more detail about the inner workings of the story and everything. But there's just so many great little moments. The restoration looked fantastic as well, and the ending I thought was utterly brilliant. The way that it played out was pitch perfect, and you get to this moment where he realizes a number of things right at the very end, and the way they frame it visually, basically he kind of has this choice at the end, and the way that it kind of is set up is like, oh no, that is something. And then there's kind of another thing at the end which was just so perfectly set up and paid off. It was kind of the Chekhov's gun of the last 5 minutes of the film, and it was just beautifully kind of brought home with a big button on the end. I just thought the end, I was like, brilliant stuff. Like, I was so happy with the way they kind of twisted that around at the end. And yeah, I think that's pretty much all I can say, really. And other kind of performances were really good. And I liked that it was, I don't know, it was challenging in the sense that, I almost wish that he would stop at a certain point with the killing and things, because there's actually members of the family that he gets on with, and they're not all kind of these haughty kind of bastards, and so you see different sides of the Gascoigne family, and especially his relationship with Gascoigne Senior. Yeah, I don't know. I like the kind of, it isn't just like a guy's killing people. Da 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 da. There's a bit more nuance to it than that, and yeah, I'm trying to think if there's anything else I could, without spoiling anything, and I guess I will leave it for the spoilers for this one and just say, is it a film you should see before you die? 103% yes, and 108% yes. An extra percent for every character that Alec Guinness plays in this film. And again, he didn't even steal the show, really. I just think he serviced that family so well with all of his performances, and it was just super fun and enjoyable, And it makes me think of another serial killer comedy that's in the book, Monsieur Verdot, with Charlie Chaplin. And if I remember rightly, I came away from that feeling a bit uncomfortable with the fact that it was about a guy who marries women and kills them, and it just felt like something that wasn't really inherently funny. But this one is, I don't know, the fact that, yeah, he is a killer, but there's a flippancy to it at times, even though the amount of work that has gone into the film, like how good it is in terms of the performances, the production design, the cinematography, and all that kind of stuff. The script is so good. That doesn't feel flippant. And so it's a weird, again, contrast, I'll use that word, I suppose, of where it almost feels like a great drama that's played completely seriously, but it isn't really also meant to be that serious. And the black comedy, dark comedy, however we're going to use it, the kind of the comedy that's on the edge, I think that's a really difficult thing to get right. I don't think Chaplin got it right in Monsieur Verdot, but I think they got it right here. And so, yeah, for me, it's absolutely a film you must see before you die. A classic comedy. I absolutely loved it. There's more elements that I won't go into right now. But yeah, I'm trying to find Robert Hamer directed this. And who wrote the film? Robert Hamer and John Dighton. So, I mean, they deserve a lot of credit, I think. God, it's just brilliant. And I would say the final substantial scene between Sabella and Louis, again, their relationship is so key to the whole story. Their final substantial sequence together was incredible, apart from the fact that they bring up the eeny, meeny, miny, mo thing and use the N-word multiple times, and it was like, the Blu-ray did come with a warning at the beginning about presenting the film as is, despite there being insensitive material in it that hasn't aged well. So yeah, that was like, oh wow, Jesus, that came out of nowhere, But that aside, it's incredible. So yeah, films to see before you die, absolutely. Thank you for watching. Hope you enjoyed, and I'll see you in the next one.